How do we recruit and retain new members? How do we create a harmonious lodge? And how do we appeal to the modern man? These are questions many existing lodge members ask themselves, but many may not be able to answer. To ensure the longevity and success of each lodge, it's imperative to address these questions and others to encourage the growth and development of your lodge. Past Assistant Grand Master of Queensland, Greg Godding, visited Freemasons Victoria a short while ago to present his model for a successful lodge. In this empowering DVD, Greg addresses common problems and suggests proven solutions to get your house in order.
In introducing Right Worship Brother Greg Godding, I've got to say that some of you have heard his address, Order in the House, before, and most of you said to me, everybody said to me, what a great motivation and uplifting address it was. So we thought we'd take the chance of bringing Greg back and perhaps briefly touching on Order in the House, but talking to us about how we get motivated and how we get Freemasons motivated in our jurisdiction. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to you to Right Worship Brother Greg Godding, past Assistant Grand Master of Queensland. Greg, you have the floor to deliver your address. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank your Grand Master and your Deputy for once again inviting me back to Melbourne, to your fair city, and to once again bring down the message that I've spoken about before in Order in the House. May I ask, just by a show of hands, has anyone heard Order in the House? Have you actually heard the presentation? Okay, well, you know, there's certainly something. I will say this to you, I am going to certainly go through it, a few of the points tonight. I'm not going to go through it all, and I'm certainly not going to tell you all the anecdotal stories that I would generally say when I do the Order in the House presentation. But I will say this to you, that those who have heard Order in the House multiple times become very much the followers of what it's behind. We have found that those that have heard it but once, they get fixated on what I said now and they miss out in the next 6 or 7 minutes. I've either infuriated them, or they're agreeing with me, or they're going to stand up and tell me at the end that I'm wrong or whatever. So they switch out for 6 or 7 minutes and then they switch back on, and then at the end I'll be told, oh, you said this, and I'll go, actually I didn't say that, and I've got my notes here so I know what I said. So I will once again touch on Order in the House, and at the end we're going to have a session of questions and answers, and that'll be when I'll be able to expand on a lot of things. And I would ask if you could hold your questions to the end, but I certainly want you to, if you've got some doubts, or if you have some concerns of what I said, or if you disagree, stand up and tell me that you disagree. I'd rather you tell me to my face than for me to hear back in 2 or 3 days' time. I'd probably ring you if it was in 2 or 3 days' time anyway. But the main thing is, if you've got some comments or concerns, or you've got some thoughts or views, please ask the question. Those who are in business will be familiar with the term account liquidation, and that is the number of your current accounts that you are going to lose in any given year. All successful businesses have a view about their current accounts, and that is that you can waste a lot of time and a lot of effort trying to prop up customers that you're going to lose. And how do they overcome that? They overcome it by the simple fact that they have a view that their customer base is singularly the most important thing that they could ever have. They understand the power of positive word of mouth advertising. They recognise there's a hell of an expense involved in constantly trying to bring in a new customer, when in actual fact all you have to do is look after the customers you already have, because if you look after them, they will bring to you every new customer you ever want. And positive word of mouth of advertising is so very important to every one of us who owns a business. It costs nothing. Your existing customers sell your product for you. You have to do little to justify either price or quality, because your customers are already doing it. Those customers who feel well looked after will return the favour, and they will do that by simply going out and looking for yet another customer to simply repay you. Another factor in all good businesses is that thing that I always call persistence. And persistence is that view that we are going to win, we are going to prevail, whatever the odds and whatever the situation. I often make the comment in Order in the House that over 80 years ago, Calvin Coolidge, who was the 30th President of the United States, he said that nothing in this world will take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men of talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone were omnipotent. And we must realise that we've got to be persistent if we are going to overcome the problems that Freemasonry has as far as membership and growing our lodges. Unfortunately, there are always going to be those among us in your lodges, in Grand Lodge, in your districts, who are going to resist change. And more to the point, they fear change. And fear, brethren, is the most paralysing of all the emotions. We cannot, however, be deterred. We must have that attitude that we are going to win and we are going to prevail. The presentation order in the House has never been about negatives. It's always been about the solutions to those problems that we all know we've got. But to realise and understand where we are and to plan our path into the future begins by understanding the history of how we got so low in the ebb and what we have to do to get ourselves out of it. Those who do not know their past are condemned to repeat it. You know, for years I have heard that there's all these solutions to the problems of Freemasonry. And I've seen so many solutions put forward that didn't work. And I very much come to the conclusion the reason the solutions didn't work is because we were never prepared to face up to the real problems. So the point being, how do you come up with a solution if you haven't identified the real problem? Our problem in Freemasonry has never been getting men into the craft. It's always been keeping men into the craft. For far too long we've been prepared to listen to those who really have no runs on the board. You know, they say, oh, but we've done this and this and this over the years, but you look at the stocks that they have and they're almost down to the lowest point of all, and yet they would convince themselves that what they are doing is correct and what others want to do to change the way that we've done the business is so wrong. If you do it the way you've always done it, brethren, you are going to get the result that you've always got. You know, if nothing changes, then nothing changes. I have made the comment many a time that the problems in Freemasonry were the same problems when I joined 33 years ago. In fact, if I had have been able to command an audience 33 years ago, I would have told them 33 years ago exactly what I tell you today, because the problems are the same problems. 33 years ago, they didn't want to know. 23 years ago, they didn't want to go know. 13 years ago, they didn't want to know. And about 6 or 7 years ago, they thought, better start listening because we have got some problems. I don't want you to poo-hoo the ideas that I come up here today with. I don't want you to sort of say, oh, this is all rubbish. I do want you to give it a bit of a hearing, and I do want you to take it on board. I can tell you now the runs are on the board, and if you do listen to what I'm saying and you take on board what I'm saying, I can guarantee you're going to change the fortunes of your lodge. The fact is, brethren, there is simply no secret. There's nothing that I'm going to say here today that you don't know about. There are, however, 5 areas, and 5 areas only, that I have maintained for many years now, have to be changed or have to be put in place within your lodges in order for your lodges to progress and go ahead. We need to constantly remind ourselves, brethren, that to obtain new members, we have to do something that we've never been able to do before, and that is maintain and retain the existing members. You know, for years we have continued to lose our customer base. That customer base that if we had have kept, we would have grown the organisation. We need to bring a culture which ensures that we retain our existing customers, who in turn are going to bring to us every new customer that we're ever going to want by way of that positive word of mouth advertising. Brethren, you are all entitled to have your own opinions. I would fight to the death for you blokes to have your own opinions, but what you're not able to do, and what none of us are able to do, is change the facts. And the facts are this: the men that we're trying to bring into Freemasonry, what are they really like? Do you really know the audience that we're trying to target? Those young men, those men in their 20s and 30s and 40s, what are they really like? Well, let me tell you about what they really like. They are far more professional than any generation that have gone before them. They are non-confrontational. In fact, they won't stand and have the fight. They have been taught to walk away from an argument. They are generally very well educated. They embrace things like the internet, websites and social networks. They are very competent and use Facebook and Twitter rather than email. Email is for the old fellas like myself. They don't use it at all. They research everything on the World Wide Web. They have been taught to be inquisitive. They question rather than to blindly accept. My generation accepted things because Dad told me that it was that way. My sons don't see it that way at all. They are money rich but time poor. Their lives, and our lives too, are far more hectic and crammed than any other generation that's gone before them. They have no problems at all paying for value, none at all. They will pay for value without any hesitation. They want to be told facts and not fictions. They're not one bit naive. They're not naive at all. In fact, they're very discerning. They're very analytical in their approach. They want clear, precise and correct instructions. They want to be kept interested and entertained. They want to be encouraged and guided. They are fascinated with our rituals when the ceremonies are done well. They have no real interest, desire or need to retire. They don't even think about retiring. Retiring is something that old people do. They have been taught to have an active and hands-on role in parenting. They are taught from a very, very young age to have a balanced life. Not a life that is one-sided towards work or one-sided towards play. They are taught at their school level, right through their life, they're taught about a balanced life. They will never forsake their families, they will never forsake family life, and they will let nothing stand between their family life and the happiness of that family life and where they want to go. And probably the most important thing that we all need to understand is their wives and partners share absolutely equal status in the relationship. So these young men that we try to encourage in Freemasonry, what is it that we need? What is it that we have to do? What is it that we have to overcome? The things they dislike. Well, they don't like a lack of direction. They don't like indecisiveness. They don't like double standards or hypocrisy. They don't like being patronised. They don't like having their time wasted. They can't bear arguments at a practice meeting. You know, you go along to a practice meeting and the old fellas stand there and argue. And when I say old fellas, I'm talking my generation, so I don't want anyone to become thin-skinned about it. The ones of us who have been around for 20 or 30 years, they can't bear it when we stand around and debate the way that the ceremony should be done. The ceremony is the way the ritual should be done, it's the way the DC should be done, and it's the way that your district grand officer or whatever the title you have, that's the way it should be done. They don't like waffling and over-explanation. They don't like self-centeredness. They don't like we've always done it this way. They don't like resistance to change. They don't like being lectured to or talked down to. They don't want to be criticised by those that they feel have no credibility. They will not accept to be made that they are the only ones that have the entire future of the lodge in their hands. In other words, oh, we've got you young fellas in here now, beauty. You get all your mates in and we'll be right again. They don't want to wear that burden. They want to see it as part of their responsibility, but it's not all their responsibility. They don't want to be felt bad if they can't get to a lodge meeting because they're doing something with one of their kids. And how often have we heard criticism aimed at younger Freemasons because, oh, you're going to let the lodge down if you don't get there? Well, we need to come up with solutions. We need to come up with ways to get around those problems. And brethren, these are the reasons that for years and years and years, for every 10 Freemasons that we initiate, within 10 years we've lost 8 of them. And that is the figure right across every jurisdiction in the mainland, in Australia, the country of Australia, and in New Zealand. For every 10 Freemasons we initiate, within 10 years, we have successfully lost 8 of them. Now, if we were to do that in our businesses, we'd go broke within years. We'd be gone broke. So never underestimate the value of Freemasonry. Never underestimate what a good product it is. We've just got to start treating it a bit more kindly than what we do. See, a newer, younger member will never, ever, ever be prepared to ask one of his mates to consider joining the lodge until he is 100% certain that he's not going to be poo-hooed or ridiculed by that mate for getting him into Freemasonry. And there's the guts of your problem. You've got to overcome that issue that when he's down at the tennis club tomorrow afternoon or he's down at the beach with his mates on Sunday, he will never accept him being in a situation where his mate says, what's this crap you've got me into? What's this stuff that you've got me into? What was all that about the other night? We've got to understand that they will not be the apologists for some of the realities that go on in all of our lodges. We have to become a lot more aware of the product that we serve up when we go to lodge. Brethren, many of us put up with things in our lodges that we should not put up with, yet under no circumstances are we going to inflict on those behaviours on any of our friends. And as I said, there lies the problem. If we are indeed embarrassed because of the reality of what's going on in a lot of our lodges, how do we ever bring ourselves to ask one of our good mates to consider becoming a Freemason? There's the problem. If we overcome that problem, we've got it made. Brethren, within business, within Freemasonry, there's also a thing called the expectation gap. And the expectation gap is what we think we are delivering to our customer base as opposed to the way they perceive it. You know, and we do that all the time. I hear lodges say, oh yeah, no, our lodge members are great, they're wonderful, everyone's happy. Then you talk to the lodge members and you find out there's a completely different view. And yet both sides truly believe that what they are saying is right. They truly believe we can't deal up a better product. This is the best product, because there is such a lack of communication. I often ask the question of lodge treasurers, is there any lodge treasurers in the room or secretaries in the room here today? Okay. How many men would you have on your books, and I don't need numbers, but do you have men on your books who pay their dues every year but don't go to lodge? We all nod yes. You know why they do that? Because they want to belong to something of value. They want to belong to an organisation that has got this wonderful history, that is a magnificent organisation. But you know why they don't go to lodge? Because they don't want to go to lodge, because they can't bear to go to lodge, and in many cases it's because what we're dishing up at lodge is not what they expected. We have driven them away. They will continue to pay because it makes them feel like they're part of a big organisation, but we don't see them come back, and that's a sad reality that we need to overcome. It is about the perception. It's not the way that we see it. We're that 20% who go to our lodge meetings every month no matter what. It's the 80% of Freemasons who never attend their lodge. It's the way they see it is the problem that we have to overcome. And when we overcome that, we will have them come back, and we'll have their sons come back, we'll have their friends come back, and we'll have a lot more people come back. One of the big problems, the biggest problems that we have as an organisation is singularly the lack of our ability to explain what Freemasonry is. You know, I've made the comment about the square and compass, a wonderful thing, we all say it's a wonderful thing. But the biggest problem that we have when we point to that square and compass is explaining what it is. You know, as I often say, a man who wears a Rotary badge, you can say it's a Rotary wheel and this is what Rotary does. A man who wears a Legacy flame, this is from Legacy, I know that I can explain what Legacy is. A man who wears a square and compass, what's that? It means I'm a member of Freemasonry. What is Freemasonry? Try answering what Freemasonry is in 2 or 3 minutes. Try answering Freemasonry in a very select group of words. You can't do it. I can't do it. It is impossible. It is the thing that we have to overcome. We all know what Freemasonry is, don't we? We know it's a peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols, don't we? We know that. And we know that because when we become initiates, it's printed on a card. The only time in the history of a Freemason that anyone ever writes down what Freemasonry is the night we are initiated, and there on the card it's a peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. Well, if you want to know how irrelevant that is in today's world, we can stop now, we can stop filming, they can come with us. We can go outside and you can watch me on the footpath out here telling people what Freemasonry is. It's a peculiar system of morality veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. I will bet you my bottom dollar that within 5, an ambulance is here, or at least a police car, and they are sort of shuffling me off because the fact that this bloke has come down from Queensland and he's quiet off his street. See, we've got to get far over that business about what Freemasonry is. You know, Freemasonry, when people say to me now, what is Freemasonry, I simply come up with the standard line, it's just part of my life. And that's what I say to them. It's part of my life. And I might go on to say it's a part I enjoy. Now, the person who doesn't ask the next question, so be it. But my experience is they always ask a second question. Well, those who are interested ask a second question. See, too many of us want to say, what is Freemasonry? And then you get into this big spiel and 22 minutes later, you know, they're going, oh, God, I only asked what Freemasonry is. You know, I don't need to hear the story of your life. Our issue is that we've got to be able to talk about what Freemasonry is. So I say to people, it's part of my life, knowing full well there's always going to be a second question. The second question will be, you're a cult, aren't you? And I go, no, we're the furthest thing from a cult. Oh yeah, but you're a religion, aren't you? No, we have no dogma, we have no doctrine, we offer no salvation. What do you do there? Oh, well, we have ceremonies and they're based on the surroundings of the building of King Solomon's temple. It's the second question that will always take you down the line to where that person is coming from. My grandfather was a Freemason. Why aren't you then? Okay? There is plenty. And I really do say to you, if you want to start using that, then try it out. The next time someone says to you, what is Freemasonry? Don't go for the big, just part of my life. And as I said, if they don't ask you a second question, they're not interested anyway. They're just being polite. We have a massive problem when you consider how few Freemasons can actually answer a question specifically about what is Freemasonry. You know, in the early days that I used to do this, I used to get people to stand up. I used to invite them to stand up and tell me, you tell me what Freemasonry is in 2 minutes and don't use the word charity. And I've got to say to you, I've probably done this now for 8,000 or 9,000 Freemasons across Australia and New Zealand. and I've never had anyone who's been able to tell me what Freemasonry is within 2 minutes without using the word charity. And we've got to get far past the fact that it's a charity, because these young men that we're trying to bring into Freemasonry now, they're charitable by disposition. They are very charitable in the way they've been brought up. So to simply try and sell Freemasonry based on the fact that it's a charity doesn't cut any ice at all. They need to know a lot more about that, and we need to educate ourselves a lot more about that. The first step, brethren, in solving any problem is actually being prepared to admit that we've got a problem. That's the very first thing. And to be able to name what that problem is. But more importantly than that first step is the second step, and that is having the will to want to do something about it. You know, I was a chain smoker. I love smoking. I used to set the alarm for 4:30 in the morning to get up and have that first durry. I loved it so much. Nothing better. The sun coming up. The sun does come up here, doesn't it, eventually at Victoria? But up where I come from, 4:30, sun coming up, you know, a cup of coffee and a smoke. Loved it. You know, had the pipe going. I knew every time I lit it up, I knew every time I had a smoke, I knew it was killing me, but I loved it so much. And it was only the day that I actually said to myself, you know what, it's time, I've got a problem, I need to do something about this problem, that I actually did something about the problem, and I gave away the smokes altogether. So we need to be able to admit that Freemasonry has a problem, and then we need to understand, well, there are solutions to it, and that's why I'm here today. I'm here to reiterate to you that there are only 5 things that you have to do to resolve the problem of Freemasonry, and the first of them, the very first of them, is to find that perfect harmony. And those who have heard me talk about it or do the Order in the House address, you've heard me talk about perfect harmony. Perfect harmony is not loving each other, it's having total respect for each other. Absolute and total respect. You know, as Freemasons, we're supposed to have this total respect for each other, but I've got to say to you, it doesn't always happen. You know, I can give you countless stories of fighting, bickering, bitching. I can tell you it all. I've heard it a million occasions. You men, a lot of you are senior Freemasons in this room. You know as well as I do that that's what we have seen over many years, is the arguing and the bickering within lodges, and that's what kills Freemasonry. If the harmony is not there, then nothing else can ever be achieved, because the changes that we need to implement are never going to be implemented because we're not working for the good of the lodge. We are simply working for ourselves or our own interests. If a lodge is in trouble, and many of them are in trouble, I will almost guarantee you that disharmony is at the core of the problem. I will almost guarantee you that. So number 1 of the 5 areas that I believe is harmony, and again, why is it so important? Well, how often do we teach our Freemasons, the new Freemasons, that they are to live a life based on brotherly love, and then we demonstrate them this argument, this backbiting, bickering, bitching, disharmony, sniping, you know, threats to resign if we don't get our own way. We obligate our members to live in a particular lifestyle, and then we want to do it completely differently. We then show them that, oh, well, that's what I say to do when you're here taking your obligation, but that's not really the way it works. I truly believe that if you can keep a new member happy and content for 3 years, you're going to keep him forever. Brethren, disharmony can show its face in many ways. It doesn't have to be as blatant as 2 men having an argument. It can manifest itself as a senior member who actually loves the lodge to death. He's got such a stranglehold on the lodge that he just stifles it, and no one else gets to say anything because he's the one who's done it, and he's the only one who's going to do it. It might be a small cliquey group within the lodge. It might be past masters meetings that are in the lodge, that a past masters meeting is called, and we negate the knowledge and the views of the Master Masons because as past masters we know it all. Past masters meetings are a thing of the past. Disharmony is singularly the biggest factors which stops a lodge from growing, which stops it from going ahead. Without harmony, you will never get your officers to go to the practices. They will never be determined to go to the meetings, and why should they? They just don't want to be there. Many organisations suffer from disharmony, but Freemasonry is the one that has this brotherly love as the cornerstone. And that's why it's so important that we practice Freemasonry based on harmony. You will never ever achieve what we need to achieve in points 2, 3 and 4 that I'm about to talk to you about, unless you find that perfect harmony. And I truly believe that once you have found perfect harmony, then you can start dealing with the other things that we need to deal with. We need to have a professional business side to our meetings. We need to have good ritual, as good a ritual as we can perform, and we need to have good, short, meaningful suppers, and then we go home. Brethren, do anyone here remember that Kevin Costner movie of Field of Dreams? Field of Dreams, anyone remember that movie? And can you remember what Kevin Costner's character, whose name was Ray Kinsella, I think, can you remember what he kept hearing? If you build it, they will come. And that's all we have to do in Freemasonry. If we build it, if we build a lodge that is based on what Freemasonry is supposed to be, they will come. And they come in big numbers, and they continue to come. But we continue to break down the fabric of what Freemasonry is supposed to be in lodges because we introduce our own twist on it. If we stick to what pure Freemasonry is and we build something based on pure Freemasonry, trust me, they will come. So points 2, 3 and 4, why are they so important? Well, and what do we have to do to make sure that 2, 3 and 4 are part of the way that we run our lodges? Well, minutes have to be circulated in this modern world. We have no place in modern Freemasonry for a secretary to stand up and read the minutes. Most of our members were here last month. We don't need to hear someone read them back to us what we heard or what we saw last month. We just need them to be circulated. We read it, we go, that's right, and then we vote on them. We do not need to have secretaries, treasurers, whatever, giving us long-winded citations about what's going on. We need agendas, and on those agendas are printed up the correspondence inward and outward, the lodge finances handed out to the members as they get to the meeting. We vote on it and we get on with the rest of the night. Apart from that, 80% of Freemasons who never attend their lodges, let them know what's going on by sending out the minutes and circulating those lodge minutes to them. Management meetings inclusive of all interested members should be utilised prior to a practice meeting to ensure that every member who comes along to the practice has his say and is able to discuss openly and freely the correspondence that needs to be discussed. We have to have good standards of ritual. We have to have well-conducted and fast practice meetings. We have to stop the bitching and arguing at our practice meetings about the way things should be done. The Director of Ceremonies, and I take it in Victoria, Peter, we have Director of Ceremonies, are we still that? Yeah, the Director of Ceremonies is singularly the only person who controls the ceremonies of your lodges. The old PM sitting over there, he doesn't control it, and if he thinks he's going to control it, put his hand up, let him vote himself back into it and get him as DC. But you know, the amount of times that I hear complaints, not only in my own state, but every state I go to, that I go along to a practice meeting and all the old fellas want to do is argue about the way it should be done. Well, that's the DC's place. There should only be one prompter. Festive boards should be on at a regular meeting should take no longer than an hour. Now, I know down here we have dining lodges, and okay, if you're going to have a dining lodge, they may take 2 hours to do it, but at a normal supper type lodge, over and done within an hour. Don't let people feel entrapped by sitting there all night while someone wants to play the harmonica, or someone wants to tell bad jokes, or someone wants to tell you about his holiday in Europe, you know, that he went for 3 months and he takes 3 months to tell us the holiday. Get the Tyler's toast over and done, allowing those people that have to go home, that have to go back to work, people like myself who run businesses that after the lodge meeting you go to your office and then you do the work that you should have done in the evening. Let us go. If you want to stay and talk and have a few, go for it. That's all good stuff too. We need to accommodate everyone. Keep the speeches to a minimum. We need to be more prepared to change as the world continues to change. Every lodge or every district should have its own website. You know, 45% of the candidates that we get in the state that I come from the internet. But 100% of the candidates have been on the internet before they come to us. They are so more well versed about Freemasonry than we ever were. You know, so by the time they actually come to you, all they want to do is sign the paper. They have done all their investigating. You can't tell them anything about Freemasonry. So what you have to do is when they come to you, and I've been on the internet and I want to join, get them in. Simple as that, because there's nothing you can tell them that they don't know, trust me. You know, we were naive, our generations. We knew nothing. We just went along and joined because, you know, your old man said you should be a Freemason, so whatever, or you asked him. But I'm telling you, these people, they know a lot more than we. It's the internet is the best tool that Freemasonry's ever been given to grow lodges. We must be prepared to look at the suitability of Friday and Saturday night lodges meeting on a Friday and Saturday night. I've got to tell you, Friday and Saturday night is family nights for these young people. That's what it is. And for you to say to them, we're going to have a lodge meeting on a Friday and Saturday night, you can tell me as much as you like, oh yeah, but our members don't mind. I bet if I went and talked to them, I bet I'd find it out a different thing. They don't have a choice because you won't give them a choice because, you know, oh no, well we've always done it this way, so that's how it's going to be. I have yet to find a single Freemason across the country to tell me that it is his preferred night. Actually, that's not true. I had a young fella in Mackay who told me it was his preferred night, a Saturday night, and I said, why? He said, because it's Grandpa's lodge. And I said, have you got any mates? And he said, yeah. I said, would you have 10 mates who should be Freemasons? He said, yeah. I said, which one of your 10 mates would join a Saturday night lodge? He said, oh, no, none of them. I wouldn't ask. So in other words, he might like it, but no one else would like it. Brethren, we have to pick nights that are conducive to bringing men into Freemasonry. And I am telling you, Friday, Saturdays and Sundays are now, Friday nights, Saturday nights, Sundays are family. Family. And the sooner that we realise that, the sooner we're going to overcome some of the issues that we have where we're trying to get people to join lodges, especially in country areas. Because in country areas, they don't have the choice. In my state, you know, we have lodges that meet on a Friday and Saturday night and they wonder why they're dying. I can tell them why they're dying, but they don't want to change because, you know what, oh, well, we have to milk the cow at, 4:30 and we have to get in and, it depends on whether or not we actually are serious about keeping these lodges going or not. If you're being honest, you'd probably think that you'd probably want to go to your mates to the club on a Friday night or take your grandkids out or take your wife out or even to visitors. It's quite unfair to be asking them to give up a Friday and Saturday night to go to your lodge, with the exception of installations, of course, but it is actually unfair to ask people to do it. In this modern world, our lives are so busy. Friday, Saturdays and Sundays are family time. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is the time to practice Freemasonry. Brethren, visiting is also a big issue wherever I go. You know, we all stand up and we talk about this wonderful visiting and it's a great thing to do. We all know it's a great thing to do. But then we talk to our young Freemasons in the way that if you don't go visiting, you're not a good Freemason. And we turn so many of them off. We push too hard. Visiting is something that they will do as time goes on, as their lives allow them to do it. You know, Freemasonry, when you get them in, is 4 hours and it's once a month. That's what it is. And it should never, ever, ever change until they're prepared to change it. Until they and their wives, partners have decided that, you know what, we can actually give up an extra night, the kids are a bit older now, blah, blah, blah. But visiting, we all would say we've had wonderful nights visiting. That's good. Let us go visiting if we want to. But never, ever make it a prerequisite to being a good Freemason because, once again, we have surveyed, we have paid outside sources in Queensland to survey our Freemasons and our lapsed Freemasons, those that have resigned. They will tell us the two biggest reasons why they leave Freemasonry is because, one, they had a fight within lodge or they saw a fight in lodge, there was disharmony there and it drove them away. And two, they were pushed. And they were pushed outside their comfort zone, either through their degrees, into office to do a charge, into some other order, into visiting, but they were pushed. 31% of those people who've left Freemasonry told us that it was because they pushed, and 32% is because they saw or were part of or witnessed a disagreement in lodge and they thought this is not what Freemasonry is about. So we need to understand what it is that is driving them away and what we have to do to get them to stay and then build from there. Brethren, there's only two promises that I ask of anyone who's about to join my lodges on the Gold Coast. One is that they attend one of our 3 lodges and once a month, and they have to give up 4 hours once a month. I don't care which one of their lodges, and many of you'll know, we've grown that successfully that we've now got 3 warrants. We all own the 3 warrants, and if you join one of them, you become a full member of the other 2. We have one of our lodges doing first, one doing seconds, and one doing thirds. So our members get a choice, but I don't care which ones they go to as long as they give up 4 hours once a month. And the second promise that they have to make when we sign them up is the very first time they have an opportunity to bring their wives, their partners, their girlfriends, or someone else's wife or partner or girlfriend to one of our social functions. That's not true, Bob, that's not true at all. Then they do it, knowing full well that when the wives come and see the good things that are happening, the good organisation that their husbands have joined, the wives will become very supportive. And another thing, that we surveyed 1,000 people in Queensland in 2011. And one of the big groups that we surveyed were the wives of Freemasons, both current and lapsed. And the wives told us that Freemasonry was the very best thing that their husband had ever joined. They told us it made him a better person, a more rounded person, a more fulfilled person. He was happy. When he went to lodge, he was happy. And when he came home from lodge, he was happy. But when things went belly up, when things started going crook, the wives were the ones that wanted to pull him out of there real quick because you know what? They come home cranky. And the wives then decided, aha, Freemasonry has made him unhappy. And then he became a bugger to live with when he got home too. So understand the power of keeping the women involved. It is absolutely essential in the life of a Freemason, and especially the men we're trying to bring into Freemasonry, that their wives are part of the journey from day one. Never ever keep a secret from them from day one. And I say to every initiate, you go home, you wake your wife tonight and you say to her, "Da, I want to tell you what happened here tonight. I want to tell you what happened at my initiation." And I guarantee both them and their wives that after about 2 minutes their wives will go, "Yeah, that's good, darling, roll over and go to sleep." Because in actual fact the women aren't interested. Sorry, Donna, they're not one bit interested. They just want to know that it's his thing and they're happy for him to do it. Okay? So, you know, the facts are, if we keep the women happy and we keep their partners happy, we're going to keep our Freemasons happy. Brethren, number 5. Number 5 of the 4 things that I truly believe have to be implanted in your lodge and implemented in your lodge is as important as number 1. But I can tell you now, you will never ever find perfect harmony, number 1. You'll never find it unless you eliminate what I'm about to talk about. And if you don't eliminate this and you don't find the perfect harmony, you're never going to have a short business party meeting, you're never going to have good ritual, and you're never going to have a festive board that's over in an hour. It'll never happen. And the reason that perfect harmony is so important to that is because without harmony, people aren't working together. So how do we find perfect harmony? Well, we have to eliminate the cringe factors. We have to eliminate those attitudes or those views or those ways that have driven so many of our members away, that have created so much disharmony. The cringe factor generally is a person. And I can tell you now that I have been asked countless times over many years to get involved in lodges that are in trouble. And, you know, it might be a Grand Master or a deputy or someone else who says, "Can you give this lodge a ring? I was talking to this bloke on Saturday night and the lodge is in real trouble." And I often will ring them and I will say, "There'll be someone in your lodge, you know, he will be a stalwart of the lodge, he'll be a wonderful old fella, he's probably been there, you know, 48 years, he's been the DC for 26 years, he's been the secretary for 70 years, he's been the treasurer for 19 years, he's mowed the lawn, he's painted the building, he's made the evening suppers, but he's the biggest pain in the bum that you'd ever find." They go, "Oh, you know Bob Jones, do you?" And I go, "Sorry?" And they go, you're talking about Bob Jones." And I went, "Who's Bob Jones?" "Oh, well, he's..." And then they tell me, "Oh, yeah, that's exactly what he's like." And then I go, "Well, he's the bloke who's going to be causing the trouble." And they go, "Oh, yeah, he's the one who's causing the trouble." But then they always say, "Greg, we can't afford to lose him." Well, I'm here to tell you, you can't afford to keep him. You can't afford to keep him. And I'm telling you now, if you're going to put Freemasonry ahead of the individual, you've then got to grab the bloke by the collar and say, "Bobby, come and have a talk for a minute, mate. You're the most lovable..." Oh, probably not using the good thing. Hello. "You're the most lovable person in the world, you know. You're a good man. But, mate, you can be such a pain at times." I'm probably back to Bob, come to think of it. You can be such a pain. And if you tell them, I'm here to say to you, 99 times out of 100, they go, "I had no idea. I had no idea I was that bad." Or even if they tell me that, they know it's out in the open, so they change anyway. Do you know what? I can't think of anyone who's resigned because I've had to say to them, "Mate, you're the cringe factor. You're the problem here and we need to fix the problem." But the cringe factor, I'm here to tell you, is something that we need to eliminate from Freemasonry. As I said, it can be a person, it might be an attitude, it might be a way we've done things, you know, we've always done it that way, but it's the thing that creates that disharmony in the lodge, and it's the thing that is always festering below. Brethren, the cringe factor can be anything at all. It may well be the old bloke who's got a story about everything. It might be the one who stands up and decides he needs to comment on every motion. It might be the one who growls at his fellow brethren at practices. It might be the one that insists while proposing the visitor's toast that, you know, now that you're to a young candidate, now that you've joined, it's important that you go visiting. It might be the one when proposing the toast to the ladies, tell the ladies that, you know, without you girls, we couldn't find our socks or our undies. We're that stupid, we don't know where our clothes are hung, so we need you. Instead of just saying to the ladies, "Ladies, we really appreciate you being here. This is one of the nights that we really enjoy because we've got you here." Why are we condescending to them and say, you know, "Without you, we can't find our socks and jocks"? I have a 28-year-old daughter, and if you in any way said to her that her place in life was to be there as the servant to my son-in-law, she would flog him and then flog me. You know, she just wouldn't accept it, and they're taught not to accept it. So we've got to understand the audience that we're trying to attract. We must make sure that the wives are happy. Happy wife, happy life. Brethren, the cringe factor can present itself in many ways. We all know it's there, and sadly we tolerate it, but we have to start doing something about it. Nearly every single one of us has put up with it. We know what I'm talking about. We know the sort of person I'm talking about or the type of behaviour. We have to eliminate it if in actual fact we're going to encourage our young members, you, to bring someone into the Freemasonry. We have to eliminate the cringe factor. The cringe factor is whatever makes you squirm in your seat, it makes you pull at your collar, it makes you shuffle your feet when it's going on. That's the cringe factor. You all know it's happened. You know, I see a gentleman out there at the moment smiling at me, and I can remember going down to his area and doing the order in the house, and right at the end when questions went up, you know, I saw a well-meaning gent stand up, and he didn't even realise that what he was saying was exactly what I'd been talking about, you know. And the cringe factor has to be addressed, and quite often you can address it in a very polite way. You can address it in a very mild way. You don't have to rip their throats out by telling them what's going on, but you do have to address it. Brethren, you can reject what I'm saying. You don't have to listen to me at all. You can be absolutely oblivious to anything I'm saying, but it's not my lodge, it's risk. You know, this year we have done, I think, 7 double first degrees. We have done second degrees and third degrees, and we've got people lining up to join our lodges. We've got them joining our lodges because our membership is so content and so happy, and they are so proud of what's going on in their lodge. And again, it's just the culture that has been created over 14 or 15 years. I am yet to find a new member who wants to change the important things, brethren. They simply want to cut out the rubbish. They want the ritual to be performed as close to perfect as men can do it. They don't need it to be word perfect, but they want us to do it as good as we can possibly do it. They don't want to see double standards. They don't want to go to a practice and see blokes arguing, which is not Masonic to start with. They want to go along, do what we've got to do, then they want to go home again. They do want to feel the warm hand of encouragement in the middle of their back, but they don't want to be pushed into office or through their degrees or into a charge against their will. They don't want to be made feel guilty that, oh, well, if you don't take it, you know, someone else, poor old Bill's got to come back and be senior warden. So what? Let Bill come back and be senior warden. You know, the facts are we have to stop the pushing. They don't want to be part of a lodge where the senior members argue about putting the lodge dues up by $2 a year. You know, that this is going to kill us and this is going to bring the wrath of everyone because, you know, it's an extra $2 a year, you know. They don't want to be part of it. They have got a bob in their pocket, and in actual fact, they're more than happy to pay just to shut him up. And I've been to many lodges where they're up and going, where they will make the cringe factor an honorary member, and then they say to him, now you're an honorary member, you don't have the right to make any comment about our lodge dues because you don't pay them, you know, which I think is always a pretty smart way to do it. Brethren, Freemasonry should be a wonderful sanctuary that a man is able to escape to for 4 hours once a month. That's what Freemasonry should be. It should be this most wonderful place that he can attend. He can leave all the rubbish that happened out there in today's world. He can leave it outside the door and he can come in here, and in this wall he feels this wonderful warmth and this wonderful glow as he is among friends and men that he trusts and men that he believes in. He sits there and he listens and watches a ceremony that he truly believes is got some value, it's got some meaning. Freemasonry needs to get back to being that wonderful sanctuary. You know, if we want to be criticised, we can stay at home. And there is someone at home who is perfectly well skilled to criticise husbands, and that's called your wife. Okay? They're there. They're ready to criticise if you want to. If we want to have a fight, you can go to your job place and you can fight with 3 or 4 or 5. So when a man comes into these 4 walls, he comes here to get away from that stuff. So if all that happens when he gets here is he sees the same as what he would get criticised somewhere else or an argument somewhere else, why would he come here? So we need to understand that this is the sanctuary that a man should be able to escape to. We need to get back to being able to speak to potential members about what Freemasonry actually is. We need to have something in our repertoire. When someone says, what is Freemasonry? It's part of my life. What do you do there? Okay, I can tell you what we do there. We need to have a far better explanation than the old charity chestnut that comes up every time. You know, it's this charity. It doesn't cut the ice anymore. Yes, we do some wonderful charitable work, but that's not what the young men are joining Freemasonry for, trust me. Brethren, For those of you who are in the other orders, let me say this. I'm a very proud member of other orders. I very much enjoy the Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite. I'm very much involved in the Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite, but I am saying to those of us who are in the other orders, don't take these young men from the craft too early. Let the trunk of the tree, the craft, grow strong. If the craft grows strong, just like that tree in your yard, if the trunk grows strong, the canopy will grow with it. Okay? And too often we weaken the trunk of the tree and we wonder why the branches wither. I am saying to you now that 20% of all craft Freemasons will go on to join some other order. Do it the way that I am talking. Do it with the view that we don't have to push. We do have to build something and they will come. And I'll guarantee the other orders that I will grow the other orders with you or for you and be part of the success. And I really do mean that. Don't weaken the trunk of the tree by jumping in too quickly. Brethren, we need to get our houses in order. We need to sort out what we already have. We don't need to go and reinvent the wheel. We need to simply get our houses in order and be prepared for the reception of men from a modern world. We have to make our members proud of their lodges. We need them to be promoting our lodges. We need them to be talking positively about Freemasonry and about their lodges. Then, and only then, will we ever get every single member that we ever want. Brethren, please don't shoot the messenger, but do embrace the message. Don't cut your noses off despite your faces because you think I'm some loudmouth that's come down from Queensland. I'm not one bit interested in trying to control you, Victorian Freemasonry. I am simply here to say that there is a way out of this. You can grow your membership, but you just have to realise that we have made some errors. You know, Freemasonry, as I said to a couple outside here before when I was having a coffee, we always had this golden tap that poured out candidates. And for 100 years they poured out, you know, and they just kept pouring out. And then 40 years ago someone said, is that tap running as quick as it used to? Yeah, it's always run that good. You know, and 30 years ago, you sure that tap's running as quick as it used to? Yeah, oh yeah, I think so. And then 20 years ago, it might have slowed down a little bit. And then 10 years ago we started to realise the tap was dripping. You know, the tap that had poured out candidates for 100 years was now dripping. And someone said, tap must be buggered. Tap was never buggered. Look at it, it's a big golden tap, it was never buggered. We went up to the dam. The dam was full, and then we realised the problem was the pipes were blocked. And that's what's happened in Freemasonry. You know, 30, 40, 50 years ago, they didn't have to go out and solicit people to join Freemasonry because they were lining up at the doors. This is all new ground for all of us. You know, those who are senior Freemasons would have never known a time where we had to educate ourselves on how to bring men into Freemasonry because they were knocking on the door. So it's vitally important that we learn that the world is a different place. Brethren, to give you an idea of how different the world is, back in 1896, Charles Joule, who was the head of the US Patent Department, now this is in 1896, he reported to the US Congress that everything that needs to be invented has been, in 1896. What a big statement. Everything that needs to be invented has been invented, you know. And the head of IBM, his name was Thomas Watson, in 1943, he was the head of IBM, you know, the biggest computer company in America. He said, these computers are not going to go very far. We'll only ever need 5 of them for the whole of the world. 5 computers, you know. The world continued to change, you know. In November 2008, you know, an Afro-American became the President of the United States. You know, 20 years before, no one would even dared to think that that might happen. Brethren, you have to face up to the facts that we need to do something. There are only 5 things that we have to do. We have to find that perfect harmony. We have to streamline the business part of your meeting. Make it 2 minutes, 3 minutes rather than 25 or 30 minutes. We have to have an excellent standard of ritual. We have to have good festive boards. They don't have to be flash festive boards, but they have to be good. You know, a nice supper, a drink, a quick toast, a couple of toasts, then they need to go home, and we need to eliminate the cringe factor. Brethren, never ever doubt the product Freemasonry. it is the best product in the world. And to prove that it's the best product in the world, look at the hammering we've given it for 100 years. And it continues to thrive. Well, it doesn't thrive, but it continues to live. We need to make it thrive, and we can make it thrive. We just have to understand what we have done. Brethren, Charles Darwin said that nothing survives because of strength or intelligence. It survives because of its ability to adapt to change. And that's a very powerful message. It is our ability to adapt to a changing world. And Edmund Burke wrote that all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So if we're going to let this happen, just sit back and don't do anything. Sit on your hands. Watch Freemasonry die. But Victor Hugo wrote that there is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And I certainly put it to you, brethren, the time has come. And I thank you.